The space around the research ship Stellar Dawn erupted in violence. Captain Hyan gripped his command chair as another blast shook the vessel. Through the smoke filling his bridge, he could see his crew working desperately at their stations. Some were already lying still on the floor. "Hull breach in sections 4 through 7, shouted his engineer, blood streaming down her face. "We're losing atmosphere fast." Haon looked at the tactical display. 20 Kethver raider ships surrounded them like wolves around wounded prey. His small science vessel had no weapons, no shields strong enough to matter. They were researchers, not warriors. "Send the distress beacon," he ordered. "Full spectrum broadcast. Someone has to know what happened here." His communications officer's hands shook as she activated the emergency transmitter. "Signal away, Captain. Broadcasting on all frequencies." The raiders were closing in now. Haon could see their dark ships through the viewport, ugly things built, for one purpose, taking what they wanted. He thought of his crew, good people, who joined this mission to study distant stars, not to die in the void. "This is Captain Hune of the Zalani research vessel Stellar Dawn." He spoke into the recorder. "We are under attack by Kethver pirates. 20 enemy vessels. Our position is Sector 779, Outer Rim territory. We have 37 civilians aboard, including 12 families." His voice stayed steady even as the ship shuddered. "Again, if anyone receives this message, please help us." The transmission cut to static as another blast tore through the communications array. Far away on Galactic Council Station, Counselor Velenith received the distress signal during his morning briefing. He barely looked up from his datapad as his aide played the message. When it finished, he waved his hand dismissively. "File it with the others," Velenith said, already moving to the next item on his schedule. "Another acceptable loss. The Outer Rim has been dangerous for cycles. We cannot risk council ships for every merchant or researcher who ventures too far from protected space." "But sir," his aide protested, "there are families aboard." "There are always families," Velenith replied coldly. "The math is simple. 30 lives versus the hundreds we would lose attempting a rescue in Kethver territory. The council has responsibilities to the greater good." The aide reluctantly marked the file as no action required and stored it in the archives with thousands of similar messages. But the signal traveled farther than just council space, light years away from the political calculations of alien bureaucrats. Lieutenant Mina sat at her monitoring station deep inside Earth's Deep Space Command Center. The rotating shift was usually quiet, mostly background radiation and commercial chatter from nearby systems. Then the Zalani distress call came through her speakers. Mina listened to Captain Hyan's desperate message twice, her heart racing. She had been monitoring alien communications for 3 years, but this was the first time she heard real terror in a voice speaking a language she barely understood. The universal translators made the words clear, but the emotion needed no translation. While the Galactic Council calculated acceptable losses, Lieutenant Mina did something different. She calculated how fast human ships could reach Sector 779. She forwarded the transmission directly to Fleet Command with her own message attached. Priority 1. Civilian vessels under pirate attack. Immediate response recommended. She marked it urgent and sent it up the chain of command, then sat back in her chair. Unlike the Council, humans had a different philosophy about acceptable losses. For them, any loss was too many if they could prevent it. The wheels of human military response began to turn. The command deck of the Thunder's Edge buzzed with activity as Admiral Tejo reviewed the incoming distress signal for the 3rd time. The holographic display showed the last known position of the Zalani research vessel, now just a blinking red dot in the vast darkness of space. "Play it again," he ordered quietly. Captain Hyan's desperate voice filled the bridge once more. The fear was unmistakable, even through the alien words. Tejo had heard that same tone before, in the voices of human colonists calling for help during the Mars colony crisis. In the final transmissions from exploration ships that never made it home, Commander Sujin stood beside him, her expression troubled. She had run the tactical analysis twice, checking and rechecking the numbers. "Admiral, I have to point out the obvious problem here." "Go ahead." "These Zilani people, we've never even met them officially. No treaties, no trade agreements, nothing. Earth Command has no legal obligation to respond." She paused, then added more quietly, "And sir, Sector 779 is deep in hostile territory. We could lose ships." Around them, bridge officers continued their work, but Tejo could feel them listening. These were career military personnel who understood the weight of command decisions. They knew that every choice he made could mean life or death for thousands of people. Tejo walked to the main viewport, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 37 people were probably already dead, or worse, sold into slavery, by Kethfer raiders, who treated other species like livestock. The smart move, the politically safe move, would be to file a report and move on. "Commander Sujin," he said without turning around, "do you have children?" "Yes, sir. 2 daughters. If they were on a school trip to Europa and pirates attacked their transport, would you want the nearest patrol ship to check if there was a formal alliance before responding?" Sujin was quiet for a moment. "No, sir. I would want them to act immediately." "Exactly." Tejo turned back to face his bridge crew. "The Galactic Council talks about acceptable losses and political calculations, but we're not politicians. We're protectors. And right now, somewhere in the darkness, innocent people are counting on someone to care enough to help them." He walked to his command chair and activated the fleet-wide communication system. Every human warship within 50 light would receive this transmission. "All vessels, this is Admiral Tejo, aboard the Thunder's Edge. We have received a distress call from civilian researchers under attack by hostile forces. 37 non-combatants, including families with children, are in immediate danger." The bridge crew straightened at their stations. They had heard this tone from their admiral before during the Titan liberation and the rescue of the mining colony at Proxima 7. It meant someone was about to learn why Earth was classified as a "I know these aren't our people," Tejo continued. "I know we have no treaties or formal obligations. But we have something more important than paperwork. We have the ability to help, and that makes it our responsibility." Lieutenant Commander Menesio at the communications station looked up from her console. "Sir, we're getting response signals from the entire Third Fleet. Captain Dongwu on the Iron Hammer reports ready for immediate deployment. Captain Jaehyun on the Storm Rider is already plotting jump coordinates, and the 5th Patrol Group, Commander Hyojin says her destroyers can be ready to move in 30 minutes. Tejo nodded. This was what made humans different from the other species they had encountered. While others calculated risks and acceptable losses, humans calculated how to get there faster. "Signal all commands. Full mobilization. Set course for Sector 7-7-9. Maximum speed." He paused, then added, "And send a message to Earth's command. Tell them we're going to show the galaxy what happens when someone threatens innocent people while humans are watching." Across human space, warships that had been on routine patrol suddenly changed course. The Thunder's Edge led the way, its massive engines pushing the flagship toward maximum velocity. Behind it, destroyers, cruisers, and support vessels formed up in battle formation. The Kethver raiders had made a mistake. They had attacked civilians in a universe where humans existed. That mistake was about to cost them everything. Captain Veximer stood on the bridge of his raider ship Bloodclaw, watching his crew drag the last of the Zilani survivors from their crippled vessel. The science ship Stellar Dawn hung dead in space, its hull torn open like a broken egg. 20 Kethver raiders surrounded it, their weapons still glowing hot from the attack. "How many prisoners?" Veximer asked his boarding party leader. 30. "Alive, Captain. 12 are younglings. They'll bring good prices on Kepler Station. The adults are healthy specimens too. The slave markets will pay well for these soft-skinned researchers. Vexamor nodded with satisfaction. This had been almost too easy. The Zilani had no weapons, no military training. They had simply sat there broadcasting their distress signal, while his raiders picked them apart. It was like harvesting fruit from a tree. His sensor operator suddenly looked up from his console. "Captain, I'm detecting ship signatures approaching our position." "More travelers?" Vexamor grinned, showing his sharp teeth. "Perhaps we'll have an even better day than expected." "How many vessels?" "Difficult to say, sir. The signatures are ... unusual. I'm reading high energy outputs, but the design patterns don't match anything in our database." Vexamor walked over to examine the readings himself. The approaching ships were still several minutes out, but they were moving fast, faster than most civilian vessels could manage. Still, this far out in the rim territories, what could they be but more easy prey? Probably another research expedition, he decided. Or maybe traders who got lost. Either way, more cargo for us. He turned to his crew. "Prepare boarding teams. We'll take these newcomers alive too if possible. Fresh slaves always sell better than damaged ones." His weapons officer, a scarred veteran of dozens of raids, looked uncertain. "Captain, these energy signatures, ... they're very strong. Maybe we should be careful." Vexamor laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. "Careful. We have 20 ships, all armed and battle-tested. What could a few lost travelers do against us?" He had built his reputation on fearlessness, on taking prizes that other raiders considered too risky. "Besides," he continued, "even if they have weapons, they're probably just merchants with light defensive systems. We've seen this before, big energy signatures that turn out to be nothing but oversized engines and fancy sensor arrays." Minutes passed as the unknown ships drew closer. Vexamor's crew worked efficiently, transferring the captured Zilani to holding cells and stripping anything valuable from the stellar dawn. This was routine for them. They had raided dozens of ships across the Outer Rim territories. Then his sensor operator's voice cracked with sudden fear. "Captain, ... those ships, they're not merchants." "What do you mean?" "I'm getting clear readings now. Those are military vessels, heavy armor, multiple weapon systems, and Captain ... The operator's voice dropped to a whisper. "They're flying, the markings of Earth." A chill ran down Vexamor's spine. Earth, the death world. He had heard the stories in cantinas across the galaxy, tales of a planet where everything was designed to kill, where the dominant species had evolved from predators so dangerous that their own world barely contained them. Most raiders dismissed these stories as myths, legends created to keep criminals away from certain systems. "Impossible," Vexamor growled, but his confidence was already cracking. "Humans are just another soft species. They haven't even been in space for very long." The first human ship dropped out of hyperspace with precision that made Vexamor's blood run cold. It appeared exactly where his sensors had predicted, but there was something different about how it moved. Most ships came out of hyperspace gradually, adjusting their position slowly. This vessel emerged like a predator pouncing on prey, immediate, controlled, deadly. The ship was massive, larger than any of his raiders, with a hull that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. But it was the markings that made his crew step back from their stations in fear. The symbol of Earth, a blue and green world surrounded by stars, was painted on the side, along with strange writing in the human language. "Captain, his communications," officer stammered. "They're hailing us." "Put it through," Vexamor ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. He had faced down rival pirates, angry merchants, even patrol ships from minor systems. He would not show fear to these mythical deathworlders. The view screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the human vessel. Vexamor found himself looking at creatures that seemed almost ordinary at first glance, bipedal, about the same size as many species he had encountered, but there was something in their eyes, something cold and calculating that made his primitive instincts scream warnings. The human in the center chair spoke in a calm, controlled voice. "This is Commander Jiwoo of the Terran vessel Storm's End. You are engaged in hostile action against civilian vessels. Release your prisoners immediately and surrender your ships." Vexamor forced himself to laugh, though it sounded hollow even. To him, surrender. You're one ship against 20. You should be the one surrendering to us. The human commander's expression didn't change. You have 30 seconds to comply. That was when Vexamor realized the stories were true. These weren't just another species with fancy ships. These were predators who had somehow learned to build spaceships, and he had just become their prey. Part 4. First Contact Protocol. Human style, Commander. Jiwoo watched the tactical display as more human ships dropped out of hyperspace around the Kethver raiders. The Storm's End had arrived first, but now the destroyer Iron Will and cruiser Nighthawk flanked the enemy formation. 20 Kethver ships suddenly didn't seem like such overwhelming odds. Launch rescue pods immediately, Jiwoo ordered. Target the damaged Zilani vessel. I want medical teams aboard that ship in 5 minutes. Sir, the raiders still have weapons locked on the civilian ship, reported Lieutenant Haewon from the tactical station. If we approach, they might finish off the survivors. Jiwoo studied the enemy positions. The Kethver ships had the Stellar Dawn surrounded like a pack of wolves guarding their kill. Any rescue attempt would put the captured civilians at risk. It was exactly the kind of situation that made other species calculate acceptable losses and walk away, but humans had a different approach to impossible situations. Signal Admiral Taeho, Jiwoo said. Tell him we need a distraction. Moments later, Admiral Taeho's voice crackled over the communication channel, broadcasting on all frequencies so every Kethver raider could hear. His tone was calm, almost conversational, like a teacher explaining a simple concept to slow students. This is Admiral Taeho of the Terran Defense Fleet. I am speaking to the Kethver vessels currently holding civilian prisoners in Sector 7. On his ship, Captain Vexamor snarled at the transmission. Terran Defense Fleet. 3 ships think they can intimidate 20 seasoned raiders. Taeho continued as if he could hear the pirate's thoughts. You are currently in violation of 17 different galactic peace treaties. You have attacked non-combatants, destroyed civilian property, and taken innocents as prisoners. Normally, this would result in arrest and trial under Galactic Council jurisdiction. Vexamor's crew laughed nervously. The human was talking like some kind of law enforcement officer, as if he had authority in the lawless Rim territories. However, Taeho's voice hardened, becoming something else entirely. You made the mistake of doing this while humans were watching, so I'm going to give you one chance, the only chance you'll get. Release all hostages immediately and surrender your vessels. Do this now, and you'll live to see a prison cell instead of vacuum. Vexamor keyed his own communication system, broadcasting his response to all human ships. I am Captain Vexamor of the Bloodclaw Raiders. We have 37 prisoners who will die if you attack. Withdraw now, or watch these soft creatures suffer. The silence that followed lasted exactly 10 seconds. When Admiral Taeho spoke again, his voice had changed. Gone was the diplomatic tone, replaced by something that made even veteran pirates feel cold. You threatened innocent people. You enslaved families, and you think that gives you power over us. Vexamor was about to reply when his sensor operator screamed a warning. Captain, energy spike from the human flagship. They're charging weapons. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Vexamor shouted. It was too late. The Thunder's Edge fired its main railgun battery. The projectiles moved so fast they were invisible, traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. 3 Kethver ships simply ceased to exist, vaporized, by kinetic energy that turned their hulls into expanding clouds of metallic vapor. But the humans weren't done. While the raiders scrambled to respond, Commander Ji-Woo's rescue pods had already launched, slipping between the enemy ships while they were distracted by the devastating attack from the flagship. "Pods away," reported Lieutenant Minho from the Rescue Coordination Station. "Marine boarding teams are en route to the Zalani vessel. Estimated contact in 90 seconds. Vexamer watched in horror as more human weapons opened fire. These weren't the energy beams or missiles he was used to. These were kinetic projectiles that punched through shields and armor like they weren't there. Another 4 of his ships died in the second volley. "Return fire," he screamed. "All weapons, target the human flagship." The Kethver energy weapons struck the Thunder's edge and simply absorbed into its dark hull. The human ship didn't even slow down. Instead, it launched fighter craft that moved with impossible speed and precision, swarming the remaining raiders like angry insects. "Impossible," Vexamer whispered. "Our weapons should have crippled them." His communications officer looked up from his station, face pale with terror. "Captain, I'm monitoring their internal communications. They're not even using their main shields yet. These ships, ... they're built for war in ways we never imagined." On the storm's end, Commander Ji-Woo received confirmation from the rescue teams. "Sir, Marines report successful boarding of the Zalani vessel. All 37 civilians recovered alive. They're wounded but stable." "Excellent," Ji-Woo replied. "Signal Admiral Teho. Tell him the hostages are safe." Admiral Teho's response was immediate. "All human vessels, you are free to engage. Show these slavers why we call it a world." What happened next lasted less than 3 minutes. The remaining Kethver ships found themselves facing humans who no longer had to worry about civilian casualties. It wasn't a battle, it was an extermination. When the weapons fire finally stopped, only 2 Kethver vessels remained intact. They hung dead in space, their crews unconscious from emergency life support failures caused by precisely targeted strikes. Admiral Teho opened one final channel to the surviving raiders. "This is how humans negotiate with slavers. We don't ***. Part 5. The full fleet arrives, ***. The space around the destroyed Kethver raiders suddenly filled with new arrivals as human reinforcements dropped out of hyperspace. Captain Wu Jin's destroyer Iron Will appeared first, its dark hull gleaming under the distant starlight. Within minutes, more ships followed, cruisers, frigates, support vessels, and heavy battleships that made even the flagship Thunder's edge look small. Dr. Sung, the Zalani chief scientist, stood in the medical bay aboard Commander Ji-Woo's ship, watching through the viewport as the human fleet assembled. His injuries were minor compared to some of his colleagues, but the human medics had treated him with the same care they would show their own people. "How many ships do you have?" he asked Corporal Minho, the human medic who was checking his vital signs. "In total, across all of human space." Minho paused his work, considering the question. "Honestly, I don't think anyone knows the exact number anymore. We've been building ships for decades, ever since we learned we weren't alone in the galaxy." Through the medical bay's communication system, Dr. Sung could hear Admiral Teho coordinating with his fleet commanders. The human leader's voice was calm and professional, but there was an underlying tension that hadn't been there during the rescue operation. "Captain Wu Jin, deploy your destroyer squadron along the perimeter. I want sensor nets covering every possible escape route. Captain Jae-sung, position your cruiser group at coordinate 7 Mark IV. Commander Hyojin, prepare your fighters for reconnaissance sweeps." Dr. Sung listened with growing amazement. These humans were treating the rescue of one small research vessel like a major military operation. More ships continued to arrive, sleek destroyers, massive cargo vessels carrying supplies, even what looked like mobile repair stations. "Corporal Minho," Dr. Sung said quietly, This seems like a very large response for saving 37 people. The human medic looked up from his medical scanner, his expression serious. Dr. Sung, you need to understand something about humans. When someone attacks innocent people, we don't just rescue the victims, we make sure it never happens again. On the bridge of the Thunder's Edge, Admiral Tejo studied the tactical displays with his senior commanders. What had started as a simple rescue mission was revealing something much more troubling. Lieutenant Commander Sujin highlighted enemy movement patterns on the holographic map. Admiral, I've analyzed the raider attack patterns from this sector over the past 6 months. This wasn't a random piracy operation. Look at these coordinates. The display showed dozens of attacks across a wide area, all following similar patterns. Research stations destroyed, mining colonies raided, passenger ships disappeared. The Kethber weren't just stealing cargo, they were systematically clearing out peaceful settlements. They're expanding, Admiral Tejo said grimly. This whole region is being prepared for Kethver colonization. They're driving out or enslaving every civilian population they can find. Captain Dongwu, commanding the heavy cruiser Stormbringer, leaned forward in his chair. Sir, if that's true, then there are thousands of innocent people in danger across this entire sector. Admiral Tejo nodded slowly. And the Galactic Council is doing nothing about it because they consider this area too dangerous for intervention. He was quiet for a moment, thinking about the implications. How many more ships like the Stellar Dawn have sent distress calls that nobody answered? Commander Sujin accessed the communication logs. According to intercepted Council transmissions, 47 distress calls from this sector in the last year alone, all marked as acceptable losses. The bridge fell silent as the human officers absorbed this information. 47 ships, hundreds, maybe thousands of innocent people killed or enslaved, while the galaxy's governing body calculated that their lives weren't worth the risk of rescue. Admiral Tejo activated his personal communication system, broadcasting on an encrypted channel that reached every major human fleet command across Earth's territory. His voice was steady, but every officer who knew him recognized the tone. It was the same voice he had used before the liberation of the Titan colonies. This is Admiral Tejo to all fleet commanders. Execute Protocol 7, full fleet deployment. Authorization code, Sanctuary 779. Protocol 7 was something human military planners had hoped they would never need to use. It meant total mobilization. Every available warship, support vessel, and auxiliary craft in human space would be committed to a single operation. Captain Wu Jin received the transmission aboard his destroyer and immediately began coordinating with other ship commanders. All vessels, you heard the Admiral. This is now a full-scale military operation. Contact your home bases and request immediate supply runs. We're going to be out here for a while. Dr. Sung watched through the viewport as even more human ships continued to arrive. The fleet was growing beyond anything he had imagined possible. These people weren't just responding to one attack. They were preparing for war. Corporal Minho, he said softly, what exactly is Protocol 7? The human medic finished his medical scan and looked directly into Dr. Sung's eyes. It means, we're done watching innocent people die while politicians calculate acceptable losses. The Kethver Empire wanted to expand into peaceful territory. They're about to learn what happens when they pick a fight with humans. Across human space, the call was answered. Battle fleets changed course. Supply convoys loaded for extended operations, and reserve units activated for the first time in years. The Kethver Empire had no idea what was coming for them. Part 6, Deathworld Engineering, Dr. Sung watched in fascination as Corporal Minho worked on his injured colleague. Dr. Yelter, the Zalani researcher, had suffered severe burns during the raider attack, and by all medical standards available to their species, he should have been beyond help. Yet the human medic worked with a calm efficiency that seemed almost miraculous. The cellular regeneration is incredible, Dr. Sung murmured, watching Minho apply what looked like a simple gel to the worst burns. On our homeworld, these injuries would require months in specialized medical facilities. Minho looked up from his work, wiping sweat from his forehead. This is just basic field medicine for us. When you evolve on a world where everything is trying to kill you, you get really good at fixing damage quickly. He gestured to his medical kit, which contained devices Dr. Sung had never seen before. We've had to develop healing techniques that work fast and work anywhere. Through the medical bay's viewport, Dr. Sung could see something even more remarkable happening. Human engineers were swarming over the crippled Stellar Dawn, and the ship was actually coming back to life. Lights flickered on in sections that had been completely dark. Atmosphere was returning to areas that had been breached and opened to space. How is that possible? Dr. Sung asked. Our engineers said the ship was a total loss. The structural damage alone should take weeks to repair. Lieutenant Jae-sung, the human engineering team leader, overheard the conversation as he passed through the medical bay. His coveralls were stained with coolant and metal dust, but he was grinning with satisfaction. Dr. Sung, right. I heard you're the chief scientist from the Stellar Dawn. He wiped his hands on a cloth and extended one for a handshake, a human gesture Dr. Sung was still getting used to. Your ship's not that badly damaged, actually. The Kethver use brute force weapons, lots of energy, not much precision. They blew big holes, but they didn't target critical systems. But the hull breaches, the power grid failures, our engineers said it would take months in a shipyard. Jae-sung laughed, not mockingly, but with genuine enthusiasm. See, that's the difference between our approaches. Your people build ships to work perfectly under ideal conditions. We build things to keep working even when everything goes wrong. He led Dr. Sung to the viewport, pointing at the work crews moving across the Zalani vessel's hull. Those hull patches. They're not permanent repairs, they're combat patches, designed to seal breaches in minutes, not hours. The power grid. We bypassed the damaged sections and rerouted everything through emergency systems that can handle the load. Dr. Sung watched human engineers working in teams, each person knowing exactly what to do without needing detailed instructions. They moved like parts of a single machine, anticipating each other's needs and coordinating their efforts with practiced ease. Your technology is so advanced, Dr. Sung said admiringly. Advanced? Jae-sung looked surprised. This isn't advanced technology, Dr. Sung. This is survival technology. Every tool we're using was designed for emergency repairs under combat conditions. We assume everything will break at the worst possible moment, so we build redundancies into redundancies. Commander Sujin joined them at the viewport, watching her engineering team's work. Lieutenant Jae-sung is being modest. What you're seeing is the result of centuries of humans fixing things that shouldn't be fixable. We've had to learn these techniques because our homeworld doesn't give us the luxury of perfect conditions. She pointed to a group of engineers who were literally welding new support beams while standing in vacuum, their work suits allowing them to function in environments that would kill most other species. Every human learns basic engineering and medical skills as children. We have too. Our world demands it. Dr. Sung was beginning to understand something important. Your species doesn't just build differently. You think differently about problems. Exactly, Sujin replied. Most species in the galaxy have evolved on relatively peaceful worlds. When something breaks, they have time to study the problem, order replacement parts, maybe redesign the whole system. We don't have that luxury. Through the ship's communication system, they could hear reports from the engineering teams. The Stellar Dawn would be spaceworthy again within hours, not months. Systems that Zalani engineers had written off as destroyed were being brought back online through methods that seemed impossible. Dr. Sung, Commander Sujin said quietly. You asked Corporal Minho earlier why we responded so strongly to save 37 people. This is part of the answer. We don't accept that anything is beyond saving if we can help it. She gestured to the bustling activity around them. Medics treating wounds that should have been fatal. Engineers repairing ships that should have been scrap metal. Logistical specialists coordinating supply runs across impossible distances. Other species look at a problem and calculate whether it's worth solving. We look at a problem and figure out how to solve it anyway. That's what makes us dangerous to enemies and reliable to friends. Dr. Sung watched a human engineer successfully restart what he had thought was a completely destroyed reactor core. The implications were staggering. If humans could repair the Stellar Dawn this quickly, what could they do when they really put their minds to something? Commander Sujin, he said softly, I'm beginning to understand why the Kethfer are going to lose this war. She smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. Dr. Sung, they lost this war the moment they decided innocent people were acceptable casualties. They just don't know it yet. Part 7. The Kethfer Empire responds deep in Kethfer territory. Alarms shrieked through the command station orbiting their capital world. Warlord Thokver stormed onto the bridge of his flagship Bone Crusher, his massive frame shaking with rage as he reviewed the reports flooding in from across the sector. Explain this to me again, he growled at his intelligence officer, who cowered behind his console. 20 of our best raider ships, ... Gone, yes, Warlord. The entire Bloodclaw squadron was destroyed. Only 2 ships survived, and both crews are unconscious, from what appears to be precision system failures. Thakvar's claw scraped against the metal of his command chair. The Bloodclaw Raiders had been one of his most successful units, responsible for dozens of profitable raids across the Rim territories. Captain Vexamore had been a reliable source of slaves and stolen goods for years. Who did this? Council patrol ships, mercenaries. The survivors' final transmissions mentioned, ... Humans, Warlord. Thakvar paused. Humans. He had heard whispers about them in recent months. Stories from other warlords about a new species that had started interfering with perfectly legitimate raids. Most dismissed these tales as exaggeration, the kind of legends that grew in taverns after too much drinking. Humans, he repeated slowly. The Deathworld species. Yes, Warlord. Intelligence reports suggest they've been expanding their territory. Recently, their ships appear to be more advanced than initial assessments indicated. Thakvar studied the tactical display, showing the site of the attack. According to sensor data, the humans had deployed only a small force, maybe a dozen ships, at most. Yet they had utterly destroyed a 20-ship raider squadron in minutes. How many ships do these humans have in the sector? Unknown, Warlord. Our long-range sensors detected multiple vessels, but they appear to use some kind of stealth technology. That makes accurate counts difficult. This was unacceptable. The Kethver Empire had spent decades building its reputation through fear and overwhelming force. If word spread that a handful of unknown aliens could destroy entire raider squadrons, it would encourage resistance across their territory. Assemble the second battle fleet, Thakvar commanded. 300 ships. I want every available vessel loaded with warriors and ready for combat. His fleet commanders exchanged glances. 300 ships was a massive deployment. Enough firepower to conquer entire systems. It seemed excessive for dealing with a small human force. Warlord, his tactical advisor spoke carefully. Perhaps a smaller force would be sufficient. The humans appeared to have limited numbers. Thakvar's eyes blazed with fury. Limited numbers. They destroyed 20 ships without losing a single vessel. These aren't ordinary prey. They're predators. And the only way to deal with predators is to show them what happens when they threaten the Kethver Empire. Orders went out across Kethver space. Battle cruisers powered up their engines, troop transports loaded with warriors, and support vessels prepared for extended combat operations. Within hours, the largest Kethver fleet assembled in decades was jumping toward the Outer Rim. 3 days later, Warlord Thokvar's fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the coordinates where the Bloodclaw Raiders had been destroyed. He expected to find a small human force, maybe some damaged ships still conducting rescue operations. Instead, his sensors detected something that made his blood run cold. "Tactical report," he demanded, staring at the display in disbelief. "Warlord, we're reading over 200 human vessels in defensive formations, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and support craft. They appear to be ... waiting for us." Thakvar's confidence began to crack. 200 ships. The intelligence reports had mentioned maybe a dozen human vessels. Where had they all come from? Analysis of their fleet composition. Unknown ship designs, Warlord. Our databases have no information on their capabilities, but energy readings suggest heavy weapons and advanced defensive systems. They're not running, they're prepared for battle. On the bridge of the human flagship Thunder's Edge, Admiral Tejo watched the Kethver fleet's arrival with calm satisfaction. Captain Hyen, the rescued Zalani commander, stood beside him, still wearing human-provided medical bandages, but insisting on witnessing what was about to happen. "Admiral," reported Commander Sujin, "enemy fleet is taking attack formations. 300 vessels confirmed. They significantly outnumber us." Captain Hyen looked worried. "Admiral, perhaps you should withdraw. Your people have already done so much." Admiral Tejo smiled grimly. "Captain Hyen, you're about to learn something important about humans. We don't measure victory by the number of ships." He activated the fleet communication system, broadcasting to every human vessel in the formation. "All commands, this is Admiral Tejo. The Kethver Empire has decided to respond to our rescue operation with overwhelming force. They believe that might makes right, that innocent people are acceptable casualties in their expansion." His voice hardened. "They're about to discover why that kind of thinking doesn't work against humans. All vessels, prepare for combat. Show them what happens when slavers threaten people under human protection." Warlord Thakvar intercepted the human transmission, his translator converting the alien words. The calm confidence in the human commander's voice was unnerving. These creatures weren't afraid, despite being outnumbered 3-2. "Open a channel," he commanded. "Let me speak to their leader." The view screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the human flagship. Thakvar found himself looking at a being that seemed almost ordinary, bipedal, similar size to many species he had encountered. But there was something in those eyes, something that reminded him of the apex predators from his own homeworld. "I am Warlord Thakvar of the Kethver Empire," he announced. "You have attacked our ships and interfered with our operations. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." The human commander, Admiral Tejo, according to the translation software, looked back at him with no trace of fear. "Warlord Thakvar, I am Admiral Tejo of the Terran Defense Fleet. You have enslaved innocent people and attacked civilian vessels. There will be no surrender, no negotiation, and no mercy for slavers." Captain Hyen whispered to Admiral Tejo, "You don't understand. This isn't one world. This is humanity united." The words were picked up by the open communication channel, and Thakvar heard them clearly. Humanity united. The implications hit him like a physical blow. This wasn't just a local defense force. This was an entire species that had decided that Kethver Empire was unacceptable. *** Part 8. When Deathworlders Go to War. ***. The first shots of the Battle of the Neutral Zone came from Warlord Thakvar's flagship. Massive energy beams lancing across space toward the human formation. He expected the standard response, individual ships breaking formation, each captain fighting for personal glory and survival. Instead, something happened that no Kethver commander had ever witnessed. The human fleet moved as one organism. As Thakvar's energy weapons struck their targets, the entire formation shifted in perfect coordination. Ships that were hit didn't break away or retreat. They simply adjusted position while other vessels moved to cover them. What are they doing? Thakfur demanded, watching his tactical display in confusion. They're not fighting like individuals, Warlord. They're moving like a single creature with many parts. Lieutenant Haywan, commanding the human cruiser Storm's End, watched the Kethver attack patterns from her position in the formation's secondary line. The enemy ships were powerful, but they fought the way most galactic species did, each vessel seeking personal victory. Captains competing for glory and the best salvage rights. Tactical analysis, Lieutenant Minesio, she requested from her weapons officer. Kethver's ships are spreading out to engage individual targets. Classic raider mentality. They want to isolate and overwhelm single vessels. Minesio paused, studying the enemy movements. They have no concept of coordinated fleet action. Haywan nodded grimly. Then they're about to get a very expensive education. All weapons, prepare for synchronized strike. Target the lead battle cruiser. Across the human formation, 12 ships received the same targeting data simultaneously. When they fired, it wasn't 12 separate attacks. It was one devastating blow, delivered by 12 different weapon systems. Thagver watched his flagship's shields collapse under the coordinated assault, then saw the same thing happen to 2 more of his heaviest vessels. The humans weren't trying to win individual ship duels. They were systematically destroying his fleet's command structure. Impossible, he roared. No species fights like this. Where is their individual honor? Their personal combat? His tactical officer, veteran of dozens of battles, looked up from his console with fear in his eyes. Warlord, I don't think they care about individual honor. They're fighting for something else entirely. On the bridge of the Thunder's Edge, Admiral Tejo watched the battle unfold with calculated precision. Every human ship knew its role. Every captain understood how their vessel fit into the larger plan. This wasn't random violence. It was applied engineering, warfare reduced to mathematics, and mutual support. Admiral, reported Commander Sujin, Kethver formation is beginning to break apart. Their commanders are trying to engage us in single combat. Let them try. Captain Dongwu, take your destroyer squadron and demonstrate pack tactics. Captain Wu Jin, position your cruiser group for enveloping Maneuver 7. The human ships moved with mechanical precision, each group executing maneuvers that had been practiced countless times in simulation. As individual Kethver vessels broke from their formation to engage what they thought were isolated human ships, they found themselves surrounded by coordinated attack groups. Lieutenant Haywan watched 3 Kethver raiders attempt to overwhelm her cruiser, expecting an easy victory against a lone vessel. Instead, they flew directly into a carefully prepared trap. The moment they committed to their attack run, 4 human destroyers emerged from behind a debris field, hitting them from multiple angles simultaneously. Target down, she reported, calmly, moving to support Captain Ji Wu's engagement. This was the nightmare scenario Kethver commanders had never imagined, an enemy that treated every ship as expendable, every victory as secondary to the overall mission. When human vessels took damage, they didn't retreat to lick their wounds. They adjusted their role in the formation and continued fighting. Captain Hyen, still aboard the Thunder's Edge, watched the battle with growing amazement. Admiral, your people fight like they share one mind. Admiral Tejo glanced at the Zalani captain. In a way, we do. Every human in this fleet knows that our mission isn't to win glory or capture prizes. Our mission is to make sure no one else suffers what your people suffered. The battle turned into a masterclass in coordinated warfare, while Kethver ships competed with each other for the best targets. Human vessels worked together to systematically dismantle their enemy's capability to fight. When a Kethver ship was disabled, human boarding parties secured it. When enemy commanders tried to retreat, human pursuit squadrons were already in position to cut them off. Warlord Thakfur, as communications officer, called out desperately, "We're receiving surrender requests from 17 of our captains. Surrender. Thakfur couldn't believe what he was hearing. Kethfer warriors don't surrender. They do when they realize they're not fighting warriors, sir. They're fighting something else entirely. Lieutenant Haywan, coordinating the capture of disabled enemy vessels, opened a communication channel to Admiral Tejo. Sir, the Kethfer crews were taken prisoner. They keep asking the same question. What question, Lieutenant? They want to know how many worlds humanity controls. They can't believe that creatures who fight like this evolved on just one planet. Admiral Tejo was quiet for a moment, watching the last Kethfer resistance collapse as his fleet completed its enveloping maneuvers. Tell them the truth, Lieutenant. Tell them we fight like this because we come from a world where everything was designed to kill us, and we learned that the only way to survive is to protect each other. The Battle of the Neutral Zone ended after 6 hours, but the Kethfer Empire's expansion was over forever. Of the 300 ships Warlord Thakfur had brought to crush a handful of human vessels, less than 50 escaped. The rest were either destroyed or captured, their crews learning firsthand what happened when slavers encountered a species that valued every life.